Hey everybody. So today we are doing another one of those advanced lessons. I looked at some of you guys' work. You guys did awesome. So again, let me know if you're like, this is a little too hard, Miss Clifford. But honestly, I feel like you guys are sitting there like, this is still too easy. Give me something else. So keep telling me how you guys are doing. Keep turning it in. I check your work. I like seeing your progress. And today we are going to become ecologists and design a drone to help collect data on invasive species. So let's get straight to it. There we go. So again, you guys are designing a drone today. You'll see your assignment posted for you under week 22, and there's your copy of your slides. You guys can pause me if you need to get everybody there. If not, let's keep going. So, ecologists are scientists who study ecosystems. Ecology, ecosystem. Ecosystems are communities of living things like plants and animals and non-living things like rocks and soil. So it takes both to make an ecosystem. Living and non-living things share an environment and resources within that environment. So this would be a picture of an ecosystem showing how they all kind of rely on each other. And that's an ecologist collecting data. One part of an ecologist's job is to collect data on plants and animals that are invasive to an ecosystem. An invasive species refers to plants or animals that take over in an area that they did not originally live in. When invasive species are introduced to an ecosystem, they cause harm to the environment. For example, some invasive animal species may eat and destroy plants that are native to the area. Animals in the ecosystem who rely on those plants for food will now starve due to the plants being destroyed. Ecologists may collect data on invasive species, such as how many native plants or animals are left in the area after an invasive species entered the ecosystem, what resources the invasive species uses in that ecosystem, and how quickly the invasive species is taking over the ecosystem. Now, this is not to say that every species that comes from somewhere else is going to be considered invasive or harmful. An invasive species is one that does come in. They are not native to that area, but when they do get there, they cause harm to the rest of the plants and animals that are there. You have other species or animals that might not be native to somewhere, like the honeybee. It has actually come from Europe, but when it got here, it doesn't cause harm to its ecosystem. It actually gives us a lot of benefits. So it just really depends on if that species, when it invades or comes from somewhere else, if it is causing harm to the system. So you're going to think like an ecologist and first learn about a couple different invasive species. Some you might not even be aware are invasive. Select an invasive species for further observation. Then you can design a drone and program your drone to collect the data that you need. So again, if you guys want to pause me here because you like reading these for yourselves, you can. Otherwise, I'm going to keep reading through them and walk you through the steps. So this Asian longhorned beetle, it has invaded the east coast of the United States. It infests a variety of trees such as maple, poplar, willow, and elm. The beetle's larvae feed on trees and kill them. Can identify infected trees by looking for perfectly rounded holes that are around 1.5 of an inch thick. So little holes about that big. The emerald ash borer, kind of pretty actually. It has invaded the Midwestern and Eastern United States. It infests ash trees, which I guess is why they call it the ash borer. The larvae feed on trees and keep them from getting the nutrients that they need. You can identify infected trees by looking for small D-shaped holes that are about 1/8 of an inch thick. Why would they create a D-shaped hole? And then you've got the brown marmorated stink bug. Ew, I don't like stink bugs. They've invaded the United States, especially Maryland and Pennsylvania. They infest a variety of plants like fruit crops, vegetable crops, and shrubs. They pierce the skin of plants and suck the juices and nutrients out. And you can identify if there's an infection based on if you see a large group congregating or if crops start to die. So you can see that these particular bugs or insects are infesting and negatively impacting trees. Now you might think, oh, well, aren't there plenty of trees? But there are lots of animals that require trees for nutrients, for they eat plants. They also might use those trees for shelter. Maybe they have a den there or they live in the tree like birds and squirrels and things. Then, of course, you've got people who rely on crops. If you're killing the crops of the farmer, they're not going to be very happy, and we could have a food shortage. So you can see how it impacts other things along the food chain. So on this slide, you're just going to use your check mark and decide which invasive species you would rather do an observation of. You need to pick what your drone is going to be collecting data on. So if there was one particular one that you'd rather do some more research on, then you can move your check mark and that'll be the insect that you want to observe. When you're all set, unpause me and keep going to the next slide. So now you get to design your drone. Obviously, we're designing the drone here in the orange box. You can drag the provided pictures to finish your drone off. Your drone must have the following: a camera to take pictures of the damage done by these invasive species. So you can pick whichever camera you like. A claw to gather samples or evidence of an invasive species. So we need a type of claw that's going to be able to pick up and collect evidence of the damage, either bark or twigs, damaged fruit, I don't know. So something that can help you collect the damaged items. And then a way to store the evidence. So you want the claw to be able to put the evidence in some sort of cage or basket to bring back to you so you can study it. So you guys can pause me here, take a few minutes, make your drone as fancy as you want it to be. Maybe you want it to have several cameras so it can look in different directions. Maybe you need different types of claws. You know, world is your oyster. So go ahead and finish that up. All right, so now that your drone is designed, you need to program it so that it can do exactly what you need it to do. So this is the last step for you guys. I'm hoping to find a video that you can watch in case you guys finish early. But feel free to talk about these invasive species or research some other invasive species that maybe are in our area specifically. But let's program our drone so that it knows what information you want it to collect. You're going to answer the questions below so your drone knows what it needs to do. Number 1, what is most impacted by the invasive species you chose to observe? So you might need to go back to those previous slides and answer exactly what you're going to be looking at based on what it mostly impacts or affects. So do you want your drone to collect pictures of the sky? Because why would you do that if it doesn't affect the sky, right? So if you know exactly what it affects, you know what to look for. So when you're done writing that in a complete sentence, and just like I tell my students here in 7th grade, I tell them to stem their answer. And that just means use words from the question to make your sentence into a complete thought. So if it says, what is most impacted by the invasive species you chose? The invasive species I chose mostly impacts blah, 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 right? So you can see where I got the words from the question and turned it into a statement. And now I can finish by answering the question. And then it says, what should the drone look for in order to determine if the invasive species is still there? So knowing what it mostly impacts is the first step. And then how is your drone going to know if the invasive species is in that area? What should they be looking for? What should they collect pictures or samples of? So again, you can go back to your slide number 5 and fill this in. You can again take the words from the sentence. The drone should look for blah, blah, blah. Like, what is it they're looking for? Okay. So once you've got your sentences done, share it with each other. And feel free to, like I said, either watch the video or do some more research. What other invasive species are you aware of? Are there any in our area? And is there anything we can do on a daily basis to maybe help get rid of that invasive species so it doesn't cause so much harm to our ecosystem? Well, that's it for me today. I hope you guys learned a lot about the difference between an invasive and a helpful species to our ecosystems, excuse me. And if you ever decide you maybe want to study nature and ecology, well, this is maybe a job for you. I'll see you guys soon. Have a great one. Bye.